You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pincus and Andre Prue.
Hello, Michael.
Afternoon, Andre. It's an afternoon tasting today, like a podcast.
Well, I mean, we're getting into the evening, like it's 5:30 in the evening. We'll be watching the time where I've actually taken you out to dinner.
Oh, it's very sweet of you. I always like a good dinner.
And it's not often that we get to be in digs this nice without being escorted out with...
Very quickly.
You know, you're making a scene, sir, prefaced by that. But I was actually really, really excited to get this pitch in my inbox. We were pitched by the Fairmont Royal York, and in particular, Rain. I'm going to call you a friend of the podcast. At the very least, I consider you a friend. We are joined by Stephen. It's all Greek to me because I can't pronounce your last name. I know I refer to you as Stephen from the Fairmont, but you're formerly Stephen of Off the Hook Fish Bar.
Yes. Karataglidis is the last name.
Oh, it's one of those. All right,
Yes.
Stephen it is.
Yes.
So, and
Stephen
we,
K,
we
as
were
people
originally,
call me.
we were here for a dinner for...
Pio Cesar.
I know, I was just seeing if Stephen would say it, but he wouldn't. He didn't.
Pio
didn't-
Cesare.
Oh,
Cesare.
I wasn't even close.
I always say Cesare.
I know. I always thought it was Cesare, and then we actually had a tasting a year ago before she flew out to Italy.
Yeah.
She left me some bottles. She's like, Cesare. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, because
I got it. Yeah.
It's the C is
like Chinotto, right?
Regular
Like-
C is CH. A CH is a K, and then CC is I can't remember right now, but I mean it's the most bizarre. I have a lot
Even
of
the
Italian.
staff, I'm like, do not say it in front of her because they were pronouncing it Cesare, and I was
oh
like,
boy,
no,
I've been
Cesare.
I've been saying it all day. So much for that. It's Pio. It's
Yes,
Pio.
it's Pio.
Pio,
It's
right?
Pio.
Pio.
But that being said, the reason why I was excited to have Stephen on, like apart from the fact, like thank you to Fairmont Royal York for inviting us here, is
For a Barolo dinner.
for
Like, that's
Barolo
cool.
dinner. Okay, but I mean, let's take like a step back from that. You are one of the sommeliers in this city that has a real love of Ontario wine, and I am not going to be throwing other somms under the bus in this, but I think this is a conversation you and I have had. Is that Ontario wine appearing on wine lists in Toronto has become quite monotonous. And this is something I think all three of us can agree on. And well-deserved. You know, when you're seeing things like Hidden Bench and Pearl Morisset and Cave Spring on these wine lists, these are the heavy hitters. They are making high-quality
If you're
wine.
seeing them at all.
If you're seeing them at all.
Let's start there. That's the important part. This is the key hub where people come. And there are some restaurants in this city that have no Ontario wine whatsoever. And as you know, I do tours in Niagara, Niagara Vintage Wine Tours, and they're going to Toronto, or they have been in Toronto, and they say they were disappointed to see there was no Ontario wine on the list. And lo and behold, now they're in wine country, which is an hour away if they went down to the right time.
I'm gonna let Stephen do some talking here, but I want to just big up the introduction a little bit more because I remember the turning point for me when I realized how much you love Ontario wine was at Off the Hook when you had a Rife Semillon listed on your list. And this is a thing where Rife is a winery where the quality of the wines varies greatly from like the good and the bad, and the good stuff is really, really good.
And from year to year.
From year to year. But I remember being at Off the Hook, going to taste this wine with every ounce of skepticism in my heart and realizing that you really knew your shit. Because that wine was a banger. And what sommelier in this city has taken the time to go down to Niagara to taste at Rife and find the one good wine? So I guess the first question I've got for you, Stephen, is how do you find these Ontario wines? And then the second part of the question is, why is it important to you to fly the flag when you could very easily just double down on what everybody else is listing?
I would say the second question is more important than the first, but you can answer the first.
No, like I think the second opens it up more for sure. Honestly, same as everyone in this province. LCBO, Beaujolais, cheap white, like 21 years old, didn't know anything about wine, like don't care, just want something fresh, easy, delicious. So my number one passion was Beaujolais. Then my brother always got the passes for the Niagara. Like it was the tasting passes, or they do like the little...
like there's a dime a dozen for them, right? But
yeah,
they're all
and they would
great
have
events.
like the pairing with the thing, and his girlfriend loved them, and she's like, like, come with us one time.
In
I'm like,
Niagara, you're talking
yeah,
about. Like,
and I'm
like grill this, grill the
one of
season,
those.
or yeah.
like the winter one or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And I was like, okay, like I'll come with you. I'm like, I work every day. I own a restaurant. Like, good chance I'm gonna come, but it's a Sunday, so I'm like, I'll take a Sunday off. First wine we enter is Good Earth, like right when we're coming down. I was like, this is like an hour away. Like, really? Like, so beautiful. It was a rainy day, cloudy, all this stuff. I'm like, man, like we can make wine like right here. And then I tasted the wines and I was like, I'm in love. Walked through the vineyards, went to Hidden Bench, Rosewood, did like all the bigger ones, and then we did Niagara on the Lake, so Rife and a couple others. And I was like, man, I'm like, how is this not anywhere in Toronto? Like, I go to restaurants, it's cheap Portuguese, it's cheap whatever, like the diners and stuff like that. I'm like, well, we're a small little diner, but like, I guarantee we can find like good Ontario wine. And then
that wasn't expensive too.
Yeah, and then that Semillon was like $13, I think, at the time.
Like I think what you find on most Toronto lists is the cellared in Canada Jackson Triggs, right? Like you see it all
That's
the time.
what I was used to from my dad. So he owned a restaurant in the 80s, and he had the 1.5 liters that was a blended from British Columbia thing in Chile, wherever the grapes came, like black cellars or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, that's what I thought Ontario wine was. And you go to these vineyards, and you're like, these are beautiful, and they're an hour away. We can drive down in 40 minutes and hit Beamsville and drink amazing Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And I'm like, what the heck, is there not enough around here? And then I just decided one day, started tasting them, and I'm like, 6 months later, my whole list was only Ontario.
And it's interesting, like I didn't look at the list here at Rain, but what is your percentage of Ontario here?
So here, because our list is like 900 bottles, it's not huge percentage-wise, but I think we're at like probably like 60 to 100.
That's better than most.
But I push. Like, I'll ask all of them, and they probably listen to it. I was like, hey, do you have anything like that you're not selling to clients right now? I want back vintages. Like, if we're going to sell it and we're like the Fairmont, we're Canada, we're like a brand, I'm like, I want like some cool stuff. So like Rosewood's giving me like 09 Pinots.
Yep.
Like, hopefully it drinks well. And I try it, like, this is so good.
Yeah.
And people say we can't age it. Casaba, I bought like the 2012 Syrah the other day.
Oh,
Reserve.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, Casaba definitely is some
like,
ageable wines.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. And I'm like, drink this. And like, we have 4 by the glass at Rain. Like, I really want to push this to be like.
Yeah, I'd have to say that it's really nice to see that something like the Fairmont Royal York is doing that. It is a flagship hotel in Toronto. Like, people come here, specifically to stay at the Fairmont Royal York. They should be seeing Ontario wine.
And we do have people that were like, originally when I first started, we had like 1 or 2 and like maybe 10 by the bottle. And it's like, like, I want to come here and like drink Ontario wine. Like, that's why I'm here. They're from Australia, especially in the summers. We have the tours. So it's like, yeah, we want Ontario wine. Like, why don't you have more? Like, I'm disappointed. I'm like, trust me, that was like when I got hired. I'm like, my first priority was like bring more low intervention wine, not natural, but like low intervention in Ontario. And all of Canada. I brought BC. Like, we have like 10 BC wines now. I'm trying to like push it as much as we can get here because it's so hard to get. So,
I love the little bit of like the empathy and understanding to say low intervention, because this is something where I think it's becoming more and more of a talking point in the wine industry. And like, we brought it up with Donna when we did the Donna Fugata interview, that like she was almost afraid to mention that some of the grapes are conventionally farmed. And as I think the definition of sustainability and the definition of like what makes a wine good is different than farming to an ism. Like, it's great if you live in California and you can do biodynamic farming because, your land has been touched by God and you don't have to worry about insane disease pressure. But like, at the same time, the farmers in Ontario who are working with really great, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. So listeners, I'm sorry for being on my soapbox. I just want to hear what Stephen has to say to this as well, is the really great farmers in Ontario are people who are honest about what the vineyard inputs are and can tell you, okay, I had to spray for ladybugs in October because the soybean harvest happened blanc, and like, you probably don't want to eat the grapes that were harvested on that day, so we wait until this has happened, right? I think that is what sustainability is looking like in terms of being in an area where agriculture is diverse. Do you have any thoughts, or is it a hard sell when you're dealing with clients when you have to be honest about the grape growing in Ontario?
Yeah, I think originally, like, for Off the Hook, I used to buy not thinking about that stuff, and now, being 10 years older, 15 years older, whatever it is, like,
it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Well, when I opened, it was 2011, so 14 years. Green Lane, like, I remember, and it was just like people were not scared to be like, hey, I love this wine. It's amazing, and it was good. Like, their Cab Merlots were good for like $15, but they're like, yeah, we use this yeast strain. And now people are like scared to say what yeast strain they're doing because they're like, oh, if we don't do wild fermentation, like, no one's going to buy it. And I think that's wrong in a sense, because not everyone could do wild fermentation. It's just not a thing.
Not every grape takes to wild fermentation.
Exactly. And it's do you want to make $15 Cab Merlot taste like a light Pinot because it's too funky or something? Whatever it is, it's like sometimes, like, for the higher mass-produced stuff, like, we need to inoculate a little. It's fine. But, like, I think now it's a bad word to say to any sommelier in Toronto. If you inoculate anything, no one will buy it. It's like, no, it's not natural. It's not barrel fermented. It's not this. Like, too bad. Not buying it.
So I of course, being me, brought along 3 wines.
Oh, I thought we were going to do this as a separate thing. We're going to sneak it into this podcast.
From the cellar. I didn't know how much time we have. Do you want to do a separate podcast?
No. I think we can bury it into this because when I told Stephen what was going on, he he said we're not doing Stump the Chump, are we? And I told you, knowing that Stephen is a big fan of Ontario wine, to bring a few bottles from your cellar to see where the evening would take us. And we are doing a very rare, I guess, kind of two. You're listening in the car right now. This is a 2-for-1. We're getting an overview of Stephen, the wine list at Rain, and we're also going to be doing a bit of Stump the Chump. Do you think, I guess, while Michael's opening the first bottle, like, to what you just said about the sommeliers and like this kind of desire to be looking for wild ferment and lower intervention, I do think that is the direction that high end, like the ultra premium winemaking is going in Ontario. Do you think that we are going to see, like, with, I guess, the new generation, and maybe I'm finally starting to see a little bit more acceptance and curiosity to Ontario wine, especially from Gen Z somms? Do you think that people that honesty that comes with more conventional winemaking or larger scale winemaking, I hesitate to say mass produced because I don't think we really do mass produce in Ontario. Do you think that we will have some restaurants that might be more accepting of what we do on a larger scale, like the Henry of Pelhams and Chateau des Charmes of the world?
I hope.
Like, okay. So you haven't seen anything to indicate that then?
No, and I don't dine out as much as I used to, but I went the other day to Isabel, and they still have, like, the Pearl Morset combo they did, like the private label. And it was great wine. Like, the Chardonnay was good, but I always, like how you were kind of speaking about it, like, 5 minutes ago, that's what it was. It was like every cool restaurant had the same 4 wines. Yep. It's, Pearl Morset. It was Norm Hardy before all the stuff happened. It was Hidden Bench. Like, there's like 3 or 4, and it was like no diversity anywhere. And I'm like, wait, there's so many other great wineries.
It's the hesitancy you say as well too, like, not just with the low intervention, but if your winery has a skew at the LCBO, a lot of sommeliers won't touch you, which, I feel bad for Shiraz Madiar at Malabar in this case. He is, without a doubt, one of the most underrated winemakers in this province.
We have Courtney by the bottle. Like, I love
as you
it.
should, like,
of course. That's the easiest sell for me. Like $90. I'm just like, here, you want like a great Ontario Gamay?
Because I love Ontario Gamay. Like, I am so happy to see more and more people jumping on board.
Big Head, we have a bunch of their wines. Like, I love everyone, and it's like trying to spread it out now is the hard part, because everyone's like, hey, can I get my wine there? And I'm like, I'm trying. It's just like we got to educate people and push it too as like staff. And sometimes we have so many tastings are like, and we have so many tastings, it's like, Ontario? Oh, really? So I started doing them blind because I didn't want like this, like every time I would say Ontario, they'd be like, oh. Like it was like a sigh almost for the servers. Been here like 20 years, 30 years, served in New York, fancy hotels, and they're like, really? And I'm like, so the last one we did to pick our Chardonnay by the glass, I did California, like Fela, which is an amazing Chardonnay from Sonoma. We did a Burgundy, and I did Daubin, which is a new estate, right? In Beamsville, I believe. Yeah.
Not cheap either.
No, we worked a deal, so we're okay. But he's a really good guy, Wade. And we did it, and we blinded them. I was like, "What's your favorite?" Like this, like 90%.
Wow.
Daubin.
Nice.
And we're selling it by the glass. And they're like, "It's so good, though." And I'm like, "Yes, this is what it can be. Don't drink the swill that was like 20 years ago from the blended whatever it was. Like, it can be really effing good." Like,
so
Yeah, no, it is. All right,
Okay.
let's stop
Yes.
right there. We have a wine and glass. You've already given me a couple of mouthings of holy.
yeah, this is like when we do Stump the Chump, why do you always bring the crap to my house? And then like, is this because we're somewhere nice?
Yes, actually,
okay.
yes.
it smells like a Super Tuscan or Bordeaux. That's my.
Yeah, it's like it's chocolate covered cherry. Like,
But it has the green herbaceous note of like Cab Franc to me, which I would say Super Tuscan or Right Bank Bordeaux.
I think you got a killer notes because for me, I'm like, I'm getting more like cedar as opposed. Like, I guess when you're saying herbaceous, like for me, I'm not sure if that's Cab Franc or just like barrel treatment on Cab Sauv.
I don't get the cedar, but I'm definitely getting that chocolate. I'm definitely getting that mocha. I'm definitely getting the herbaceous notes that.
So are we doing Stump the Chump or thumbs up, thumbs down? Because this is a big thumbs up from me.
Well, you can do thumbs up if you like it, but if you want to try and guess, where it's from, vintage,
it's-
grape, they are all. I will tell you this: they are
all
all
Ontario.
single varietal.
Oh, and they're all from Ontario, right?
I'm not saying
We're
no.
not going there. Okay,
That's not Ontario. If it is,
I told him to bring
warm-
Ontario. So
it's warm vintage. My guess. I would say warm vintage Cab Franc.
Warm vintage Cab Franc
I'll go 2010
from
Cab Franc.
Ontario or from. But you also thought it was Super Tuscan.
It does. It has like this. I don't know. Italy always has like this like soil funkness to it that I get, and in Bordeaux also has that. So
This might be
I'm
2007.
no, it's too fresh.
No,
I'd say-
but for Ontario,
Yeah.
I think it's Ontario.
Oh, I think it's fresher than 07.
You think it's fresher than 07? Gotcha.
My like 16 or 12.
I
Those
think
were
it's
warm
okay. So I'm
vintages.
going to go 2010 then. I'm going to defer to what you said. I think it's 2010.
Now I wrapped these, just slipped them in the bag, and,
It's delicious,
and the
though.
cork broke.
It's
So I
so
have no
good.
idea what it said on the cork, so I can't even go by that. So I am going flying blind on this as well. The only thing I know is the varietals I brought. I have a feeling this is a Merlot.
That would make sense.
Believe it or not.
Bordeaux.
I think this is a
Italy,
Merlot.
Yeah.
What's super soft on the palate and like the cherry notes are like.
But it's green, so I thought it'd be Cab Franc, but Merlot makes sense.
I
in,
could
like,
be-
certain
But it's not
soils.
like super. It's not super because like Merlot when it's green is usually like sticks out like a sore thumb, right?
Oh, I'm totally wrong then.
Oh,
Yeah. What vintage did you say it was?
2010.
Okay. Did you have a vintage?
16 and 12.
16 and 12. I thought at some point I heard Andre say 7.
I
Yeah.
said 07, and then
You
Steven
guessed
said
it?
it was
It
too
is a
fresh.
7.
Yes.
Believe it or not, from one of the original wineries in Ontario that made really good wine, Lakeview Cellars, before they
wow.
got, long before they got taken over by Diamond. This is a 2007 Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve.
See, that's
Is that a silver medal on it?
That is a Ontario Wine Awards silver medal.
So that's not even a gold medal.
that's
from.
where you get greenness because Cab Sauv in Ontario is sometimes underripe,
But 7
Yeah.
was a good vintage. 7 was a great vintage.
but still has like
There's a little bit of greenness, but
Yeah.
really, really. So, to the team at Lakeview at that time,
it's amazing
that's
wine.
really, really good. So
It's amazing wine. Like I would put that on my menu right now and just
Oh, I would drink
go
that
ahead.
if I were
That's
you
so
ready
the
right
good.
rest
now.
of it's yours.
it's so good.
So going back to the question that I was about to ask, and Michael, you start opening the next one because I think this might be a longer one. Is
A longer question or a longer
answer
or a
from
longer
Steven.
opening?
How?
Is this one of your patented? I'm going to go down 3 holes until I find the question.
Yes.
Okay.
You have like a curiosity about Ontario wine, and this is something that's a personal passion of yours, but you are succeeding. People are buying the wine. Like that's what's happening here at Rain, here at the Fairmont Royal York. What do you think is missing from the sommelier community in Toronto? And I'm sorry to like get you to don't throw anybody else under the bus, but like what do you think is the missing step to get more restaurants and wine lists curious about Ontario wine. And I guess, like, just so I'm tapering the question a little bit. Like, I know how hard people, I just want to put the asterisk, I know how hard people in hospitality work, and I know that like heading down to Niagara on a regular basis when you're doing service on Friday, Saturday, Sunday is not always realistic. Is it a matter of, and you can take it on a completely different direction, and I actually have an end to the question, Michael, here. Is it a matter
that's
of,
why I had Stephen pour some wine for everybody.
Yeah.
is it a matter of the sommeliers need to get off their butts and go down to Niagara more, or do we need to see more restaurant or more wineries in Niagara getting their butts into Toronto?
Yes, I'm nodding at the same time. It's like, yes, it's both.
Was there
it's
a
like,
question there? I thought I lost track somewhere of myself.
No, there was a good question there.
But
It was a good last question. I didn't know if there was anything in the middle.
It definitely is both. Like, we're not, like, I'm trying to get the team out there. We're trying to do a lot of like, winery visits and really show people that it's amazing. Just go down there on like a sunny day. Took my wife there and during COVID, and she doesn't even like really care about wine, and she's like, this is so nice. But yes, I think, no offense to Ontario winemakers listening, but there's not enough presence in Toronto. I don't think from either it's getting on lists like an agency list, or cold calling or emailing or whatever it is, but there's just not enough presence on my part. Knowing there's like the 3 that do really well in Toronto, I get emails all the time and we're good friends now. But other than that, it's like I don't hear from anyone. It's like ghost town. And I'm like, well, if you want your wine here, like maybe you should have someone come around and maybe talk to somms and do staff tastings and all this stuff, because like the wine's so good. And like now we're underpriced. It used to be where like we were expensive. In the beginning, everyone was like, oh, like why is like 10 years ago Norm Hart like charging $30 for Pinot? It's like why would you ever charge $30 for Pinot? And then now it's everyone's over 40.
Taw's, Hidden Bench, Two Sisters, like those are the guys who really, Taw's, kicked the door open with, $40 Chardonnay. That's what they did, right? And everybody's like, no way is you going to pay $40 for a Canadian Chardonnay.
I love that Ontario preaches value now, and like it's the best thing about the fact that, and if people go back and I appreciate people who go back to the beginning of the podcast. It's like, now that I'm making money where I can afford to buy those $50, $60 wines, I still, Five Rose just did their big release last week. Like, we're recording this on May 15th, and I set an alarm on my phone to make sure I got my $60 bottle of Pinot, and it feels like a friggin' bargain now, especially having been to Burgundy and been here now. And I've got the 16-mile open house in my calendar because I know I'm going to get an amazing bottle of Chardonnay and Pinot for like $40 there. And like, we're now at the point where it's like you just said, like we used to be the like, why are these wines so expensive? It's like, now it's just like, I'm glad these wines are value priced.
Do you think the wineries don't come into Toronto because they're like, we've been shunned in the past? And it's probably, that's the same reason that a lot of, I don't want to call them old timers, but I mean, people think back at Ontario and go, no, Ontario's not worth $40. It's not worth it, because they're thinking about the olden days themselves, right? So is it something where everything meets in the middle? Like, I'm not going down there because I don't want baby duck, and I'm not going there because Toronto's, too snooty to even look at my wine. Is that what it is? It's a cross at the moment where times have changed, but people's mindset has not?
I think so. I think that's a big thing, and there's so many young somms studying now and doing all this stuff, and I always talk to them like, have you had Ontario? And they're like, what? Like, it's not even like a thought, and maybe that's because they're running like, the higher end restaurants and the nicer restaurants, and Ontario wineries are like, I've tried. Like, I tried 2 years ago. Why am I going to try now? Right? And it's like, maybe there are I don't know, maybe we're like the old guys now, and it's
we
are
the old guys now. And
I'm not that old, I don't think, but I think I was like the last generation of maybe people like pushing it a lot to be like, I love it, it's so good, all this stuff, and now the youngins are coming and be like, now it's all about Muscadet or something like that. And it's like, or champagne, and it's like,
I disagree.
Why don't we have cool off-dry Riesling from Cave Springs for $15? That's delicious. They can do by the glass or a tasting menu. You know what I mean? Like, there's like the Adams Steps. I just had it the other day.
Yeah.
See, good. It knocked me.
Do you remember the days of the Dolomite when it was the old vines?
Yeah.
Like the actual.
Yeah.
Now it's the newer vines.
Okay, now
But
we definitely sound old.
But like
the
$14.
The Dolomite was amazing.
Yeah.
$14.95 when it first came out. That was the minerality on that, the acidity, like everything was so good. And then they kind of switched it around, and the Adams Step became the older vines, and then the Dolomite became the younger
under
vines.
20, and it's like
still great.
I'm trying to
vines.
find like off-dry stuff for the restaurant. I'm like, Ontario, like do a nice off-dry Adams Step Riesling. Like, why wouldn't we do that? Or like one of the other brands, and I'm like, so good. And then you go like, oh, but I want Cabernet. It's like, okay, you want to pay $45, and then we got to charge customers what, $30 a glass? I'm like, we have it right here. Like, why not?
Look,
like, it's not
Cave Springs got 7 different Rieslings on the menu at any one time. They can fill your bill.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the generational thing, it has been something that has been frustrating for me because like we came up at the same time on very different paths. And I'm still grateful that our paths converged. And I thought it was going to be millennials. I thought it was going to be us. I thought it was going to be us that was going to kick the door in for Ontario. And I've been so vastly disappointed to hear like psalm after psalm after psalm when I go to these tastings that are not Ontario focused say, well, you know, I can't get the customers to drink it. I can't get the customers to drink it. I can't get the customers to drink it. And like, I always think of you when I hear that because you proved that when you list it and you have the ability to sell it, people will drink it.
When they list it, they will come.
That's what you did. That's what you did it
BS,
off the
though.
hook. And that's what you're doing.
And we do that here. Like, even our sparkling is Lightfoot and Wolfville.
Fucking killer sparkling. Pardon my F-bomb.
I got rid of Prosecco, and I'm like, too bad. Like, you guys want Prosecco? Go somewhere else. I'm like, we're doing Ontario, or like...
But I did want to say something nice about Gen Z before we taste the next wine here, is that my experience with the new generation of Soms is when I tell them about Ontario, they are like really excited about it because it's something not in the textbook. And it's like they are picking up where I thought millennials would pick up. So if you're a Gen Z Som listening to this podcast and you would like to taste some more Ontario wine, please send me or Michael a DM, or I'm sure send Steven a message as well. He might be able to point you in the direction of something really cool that you haven't thought of.
Yeah, we have like 90 bottles here. Like, I'm pretty sure you'll like something. Like,
Michael, like what? Okay, so what the hell is with this? We're on wine number 2 of our mini summit.
I poured it a few minutes ago. I watched both of you sip on it.
Definitely Ontario again.
Nobody is
so good.
Nobody is spat at
So
all.
good. Like,
so
I'm okay. You're not allowed to bring crappy wines.
I think this is the one you're saying. Maybe Ontario Merlot.
okay.
Gives you that vibe.
It's
Plummy. It's a little.
It's like a cylinder of cherry.
It's old too,
like right on the mid palate.
The fruit's kind of dropping at the end, so I'm assuming
It's still smooth. It's really easy drink. Like, this is easy drinking. The tannins are barely hanging on.
Yeah, they're gone. That's why. So I feel like it's definitely what's
like
the warm vintage? 20.
I think it's 2007. Maybe 2012.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Okay, so we had a 20.
something
I'm
like
going to
that.
say it's 2010. I'm going to say it's 2010.
2010 Merlot.
This feels like
Anybody
an
want to
Airstream.
give? Anybody want to give if it is Ontario, you want to give the where it might be from?
I think this is Noddle. I think it's Niagara on the Lake. I think this might be Peller or Trias.
Great guess.
Steven's going to go with
no,
something.
it's a great guess. Like, I don't.
Oh, sorry. I was
Definitely not on the bench.
You were supposed to guess.
No, it's not on the bench. It's definitely further south. That's my guess.
Not on the bench.
That's why I thought.
Okay.
It's going to be Malabar or something.
So
It's gonna be on the
where
bench.
is Lincoln Lakeshore these days?
Oh, man.
Okay, just checking. It's a
Crazy.
2010
10.
Did I guess the vintage?
We knew.
Yeah.
Redstone. Wow. Merlot.
Merlot, yeah.
Yeah.
It has the Merlot vibes for sure. Okay, we got the grape right. Like, we're pretty good. I think we're doing a decent job.
This tastes like almost
I
like
know.
decent BC Merlot.
This is really good. Like, I would drink that happily.
Yes.
As
like-
we have been. Like, I watched both of you, and none of you spat it out.
No, we were just chatting.
It's no Kentucky wine.
oh, yeah, I heard about those. Oh, I listened to a couple of them. Those were fun.
Like, I mean, this is really that's really happy wine. That's making my mouth happy. So,
See, that's the thing. It's like, man. Like, when we're talking about, like, Ontario, and, like, you're getting me pumped up before this dinner, and I'm just like, we're gonna talk about Italy all night, and it's like, no, drink Ontario, like screw Italy, like it's so good, and people just don't understand.
So just to bring it back home for
Wait,
Italy,
we're sure that P.O. Cesare isn't the client. You're not going to get in trouble for saying that.
Frederica's coming at 6:30. We got like half an hour.
On the other hand, Andre and I did taste a 1990 Gaia Sperzes, which is a Barolo.
Yes.
And it blew our minds.
I mean, that's the thing where, like, so Nebbiolo...
Like, it's a 34-year-old Barolo that was still fresh.
And maybe we can't be that, but we can be 15-year-old wine that's amazing.
But we don't need to be. Why? I don't know.
What I was going to ask earlier, and because Stephen had said that cab, that 17-year-old cab, tasted Tuscan. So, now... I have always given like Italian restaurants, Portuguese restaurants, can I say ethnic restaurants? Is that a thing? Can I say that? Is that
maybe be more specific?
Well, I have I mean
different cultural restaurants.
Restaurants. I've always kind of given them a pass, saying, okay, so if you're going there, you want to drink Italian, you want to drink Portuguese,
for sure.
You want to drink.
Yeah, but then they list Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio when we have a ton of really decent Pinot Grigio growers.
So
in
what
province.
I'm saying, do you give them a pass, knowing that like I don't expect everybody to be barbarian and have a cellar that's bigger than most people's houses. But would you suggest, checking with Lakeview and see maybe they do have some of this?
Now you're taking the question. Is there a question in there, Michael?
Yeah, I'm taking the Andre route now. I'm going down this road, then I'm going down that road.
Okay, nail the landing.
But what I'm saying, do you give ethnic restaurants a pass because they don't have Ontario wine? Or do you say, no, you should have quality Ontario wines to go with your foods to give people that choice?
Yeah, I think it's for every restaurant, but for sure, like I think for a lot of those restaurants, maybe they don't not everyone knows wine, right? So there's like owners. Like I was an owner in the beginning, and the agency picked my wines. Like right, like we just went. My dad's like, oh, I know a friend from they used to pick from my restaurant. He does these things. He'll just send you cases, and you have 3 whites, 3 reds, and a rosé. Sure, right? And I'm like, they're all under like $15. I'm like, no problem. And I did that for 2 years. And I was more into like the beer side. You came, you had a beer. We had good beer. We had a great craft beer.
I don't think
and
I
was
ever went
the
to
boom
Off the
of
Hook and had a bad time.
Yeah, and I was amazing craft beer. And then eventually going to Niagara, and I was like, wait, why is it agency picking for me? And why is this person doing this? And why am I getting cheap Pinot Grigio or whatever it was? Because that's what people want, or is it because I just don't know and agencies actually pick for the restaurants? And I think that's more the case. And maybe they're not, like you were saying earlier, a lot of the Ontario wineries are not represented maybe on agencies, and they're just selling their cheap foreign stuff and not Ontario because they don't have it on their portfolio.
I'm hoping that this episode does read as like a bit of help to a lot, because a lot of people listening to this work in the Ontario wine industry. You do need to handpick your agent. You don't just pick an agent because they're the cool kids or because they're popular. You need to pick an agent who really gives a crap about you. And with my brand, with ADX, and I guess full disclosure, you list my wine here at the Fairmont, which I really appreciate.
That's also because of good, not just you know what I mean. There's actually a thing you can be friends with anyone, but if it's not good, it's not good. And I'm pretty blunt, and I'd be like, hey,
no, I appreciate.
Sorry, it's
listen,
not
I appreciate
the greatest thing. Maybe it's for
that.
banquets, so you'd be shoved there. But no, it's in our venues, and it's delicious.
But we've worked. Well, you and I have worked closely to cultivate our relationship over the years, but also we've worked with Drink Better in Carrie McKnight Dearborn, and also we are now working with Grapp, where there's just a passion. I know that the agents we're working with are actually going to set foot in a restaurant and really big up our wine and really give some craps about it.
Big up?
Yeah, big it up. That's a term. When you big something up, is when you're making someone else seem big. One thing I do want to ask you, though, is we've talked about the once bitten, twice shy situation, maybe with a lot of Ontario wineries. Can you give some advice to the winery principals that are listening to this podcast on maybe like, what do you think is the best approach to going into a restaurant to try to get someone to taste your wine? If you've thrown the gauntlet down, you've said like you did the mea culpa, you've given the call out to Soms to tell them to get down to Niagara. I want you to give the call out to the wineries to get them into Toronto, but let's give them a roadmap on how to get here.
Crazy question that I've been honestly thinking about for 2 years. Like that's one of the questions where I'm like, what can they do and like what can we do? I think it's a lot of things branding. Like such things are Instagramable, all this stuff. It's like a lot of the wineries are lacking, or they haven't become like modern in a sense of like your labels, like crazy,
that's great.
Cool. Like it doesn't have to be like that. It can still be great, like Redstones and like classic, but like some, it's just like you got to get out of that like old school Ontario mentality that we're not good enough to survive with like, you know, Tignanello and Italian and like Super Tuscans that are like beautiful labels. We have to spend more money on it. Like,
but are they? Like Tignanello is not a beautiful label; it's an iconic label.
Exactly,
but like, I don't know how beautiful it is.
But like,
I salivate when I see it.
Yeah,
like I mean, because I know that there's something good in that bottle. Sazakaya, another one, right?
Look at that label. Those are beautiful label. That's a beautiful label.
It's an okay label.
No, that's a beautiful label.
It's not like the one we're looking at here from California with all the. Looks like nymphs and water and all kinds of things on it.
But I think there's some wines,
I think we think Sazakaya is a beautiful label, Tignanello is a beautiful label, Oraya is a beautiful label because of the wine that's inside. Like if they suddenly switched it to nymphs playing with water, we'd all go, but sometimes,
did they do? I don't think we need this. I think we need like that middle, like the Dobbin labels or like something like that that's like very classic, or you can have something fun if you know it's like more affordable or like by the glass.
Like Andre's got
like beautiful.
Andre's got a pig farting in one of his
but that's fun. And I think that sells because the label is cool.
Okay, I'm gonna throw Casaba under the bus right now. Okay. I want to throw Casaba under the bus right now. Casaba's wines should be flying out the door gangbusters. They make some of the best high quality banger red wines in the province. Their labels are crap.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I know there's people from Casaba who are listening who are listening to this.
They're a classic label, though, right?
They're not a classic label. For me, the classic label from Casaba is the split label with the horse jumping, with the silver interlay. And I was buying that by the bucket when I moved to Ontario in 2007. And that wine looked expensive. When I was drinking $15 Cab Merlot, and you could get a $15 Casaba Cab Merlot at the LCBO with the beautiful split label with the silver accent, and they switched to this monochromatic font that has changed bit by bit with like buzzwords on it. Like some of them have the word sustainability along the side.
I really like their reserve line with the black label with the
that
slight
label's
red.
a little nicer. The dark one.
I'm not talking
but
about.
It could be so much better.
I know. That's the thing. It's like
everybody's label could be so much better.
Mine couldn't.
Yeah, yours could.
No more farts out of pigs.
No more farts out of the pigs. That's probably
no. But I think it just has to be like Green Lane. I used to love their wines. I still do.
Boring label.
But it was like when I was buying in 2015, the 2010 reserves. It was like this wine looks like it was like my parents' wine from like the 80s.
That's a boring.
Like it looked like it was like hiding. I'm like, if we just like Pro Morset did a great job of branding.
It's amazing.
Baltimore's wines did a good job of branding.
They failed the VQA thing, and that's really what Pro Morset.
No. But the labels themselves are gorgeous.
I would argue about Pro Morset's branding.
Okay, let's talk about the Big Head Raw label.
Yeah,
those
are beautiful.
Look
and the wax,
gorgeous,
and
everything
this
about
and
that.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But like,
okay, so
I don't know. I think it's branding is a big part of it. I think like people are just stanners. Terrible labels. Sorry, Colin, but
good
amazing wines.
But good concept on labels. Like if
like the Narrow Rose is one of my favorite Pinot Noirs in the world.
Which one?
Narrow Rose.
Okay, yeah.
Like I love that Pinot. It's amazing, but like your label is maybe 20 years outdated.
even that, I think if Colin took his concept to a graphic
His
designer and
Chardonnays
dropped
are
a few
amazing.
$1,000, 100%.
Like, he has such good wines, and it's like, if it just tweaked it a little, because for Instagram now, in the younger generation,
Do you find here at the Fairmont that that the label sells, or what's, because people are seeing it on just a menu, right? And then you present the wine to them, so they never see the label.
It's more to the Somme.
Okay,
That's what it is.
All right.
Like a Somme, like you bring the Lakeview, it's a beautiful wine. If you blinded them, they'd be like, old Bordeaux, old thing, old Super Tuscan, delicious. If they saw that label before they tasted it, gone. Yeah. They would be like,
so you're saying that Somms are like
They're like
80% of the housewives that are buying wine, that it's label alone, which is pretty sad. Like, let's be honest.
I don't think that's sad.
I think that's very sad.
I don't think that's
because,
sad. If you put
all of that education, everything, and you're going to go, yep, it's all about the label. That's like, look, I have learned over the years. I'll say something's a nice label, but I am not about to not taste a wine or give it a bad score or anything because it's got a bad label. Okay, I'm all about what's in the glass.
Michael,
what you're just saying is that
this
a Somm
room.
will look at it and go, yeah, I'm not tasting
Michael,
that because
look
it's
at
not
this room.
good.
Look at this room. Look at this room. Look at the detail that went into the room that we're in. The detail on the table with the metal inlay, the leatherback chairs, the blue walls, the artwork at the end of the hall, the chandelier that's hanging
Which would
above
go
us.
very well with this Lakeview label.
But that's it, though.
It's blue. It's got gold on it.
Yeah,
it fits in with the room.
But putting the label on the table is an important part of the experience.
but both of you are
week.
right, in a sense. Like, you're saying,
Oh my God, you're moderating the podcast.
it is so. Like, you are
Politician is his next wave.
you were like, hey, it's like labels, it's this, and he's like, it's all about the glass.
I don't know. You put a Ferrari engine in a Chevette, it's still a Chevette.
But
but it's really fast.
Yeah. Exactly. No, but it's true. It's like, okay, so the labels don't matter to customers. Let's just say that. Like, it does not matter. Like, by the bottle here and by the glass, for me, being here 2 years, does not matter. No one gives a crap to be like, hey, this is wine, here you go. Some are falling apart, some are this. But then also, the wine in it is what matters. But for Somms, they see it on the table and you're like, hey, we're going to taste X amount of wines. Here's 8. I see the label. It's like Ontario. First of all, it's like, oh, it's Ontario. And then, oh, it's like a shitty label. Like, those are the two things now. It's like local and crappy labels.
It's blowing my mind that all that education, all the things, all that knowledge that they, everybody, all the Somms are going, oh, I know this, I know that, and it's all about the label, just like every other person who walks into the LCBO.
And it's not blowing my mind because I get it. It's why we've changed our labels up every year.
I find that amazing.
Okay, before we get to the last wine, just because we are here on someone else's dime, and
it's also delicious too.
We're not being paid to be here, but we were invited to be here. Stephen, can you just tell us what are the properties that you curate the wine list for? Where are we? How can people find you? Like, what are we doing here? And then we will get to the final wine for Something to Chum.
Fairmont Royal York, downtown Toronto on Front Street, 101 Front Street West. I curate the whole building, so banquets, library bar, clockwork. Rain is the most wine focused. Ontario, French, California. The middle bar, clockwork, is more champagne focus, so it's French wine.
I bought a lot of champagne.
And then library bar is a cool collective of like trying to get like new school California, classic Italian, cool Ontario.
Best place to get a gin and tonic in this city.
Yes, and it's more a cocktail bar, but we're trying to find the identity. But like, maybe it could be a little more like that new wave of everything. So Pigs Flies there. So
cool.
Go by.
Okay. All right.
All right, this last wine, Michael, I'm supremely annoyed at every Stump the Chump that we've ever done.
This is delicious,
because
too.
This is like a trio
they're
of
all
bangers.
delicious.
Like, this is.
But it's another big. It's not Pinot. It's not anything.
I didn't go off script. So.
Cab Franc.
Yeah, you have to know that if there's a Merlot and a Cab Sauv on the table, I was gonna grab a Cab Franc as well.
Yeah.
I would be blasphemous not to do it.
12, 14?
So it's all about if you want to guess the.
It's so fresh, though.
If you want to guess where it's from, because it's Ontario, obviously. Andre, I did go with the brief you gave me. They're all Ontario. Obviously, Cab Franc. As I said, it'd be stupid not to bring a Cab Franc. The only other thing I could have brought was a Gamay.
I'm gonna let you go on vintage first, Steven, since I'm actually stealing your thunder.
Also, I'm not the greatest for vintage in Ontario, but it's still pretty fresh. And it's got like this cool mentholy herbaceousness on like the bottom line, but it's still got fruit.
Yeah,
Which is
really
almost
nice. Lots of fruit on
fresh, like fresh tarragon, but like tarragon planted like next to a raspberry
slap
patch.
it on like slapping it on something, like not integrating it fully, but it's there. I would say on the bench.
Okay.
I think it's 2012 Niagara on the Lake.
You think it's Lake?
Yeah, I think this might be a Hillebrand 2012. I think this might be a red shell.
Ooh.
And you're going to go bench, and you said what year?
I would say around that,
2012?
Yeah, 10, 12.
I don't know what year I got here.
This guy's on fire. Didn't he get it? He probably got it again.
He's not on fire. He's as far off as I think you could be.
It's new.
Oh, sweet.
So, this is, I'm just trying to think. So, Beamsville Bench you got, right? You said Beamsville,
Yeah, I said bench.
You said Niagara Lake.
Yeah, it's a bench.
Our guest got Beamsville Bench because it's VQ8 Beamsville Bench. You did say it was a Trius or a Peller.
Hillebrand, yeah.
So it's a 30 bench.
So it's a 30 bench. Nobody can see the year, but let me tell you what it is. It is a 2005.
Holy crap.
Cabernet Franc small lot.
Your cellar's amazing, first of all, if it's pulling this stuff out.
Not always.
Yeah, you've listened to the other podcasts.
I mean, temperature-wise, obviously, they're preserving. This is amazing wine.
Yeah, that 05. I was like, okay, I wasn't remembering what the oldest wine was. At one point, I did think it was the 07, and then I thought, wait a second, I know the Cab Franc might have been pulled from the left instead of the right, which means it's older in the cellar.
Yeah.
So that's an 05 small lot. When you think of 30 bench, you usually think Riesling.
Yeah.
Right?
Riesling,
you don't really think of their...
Or rosé sometimes. Yeah. Now they're starting to push rosé
But you don't think of their red program, which is just amazing. Especially the Francs and the winemaker's red.
Stephen K., I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast, and thank you to the Fairmont Royal York for inviting us. I know you were kind of thrown into this last minute, but it is long overdue.
Long time listener.
First time guest.
Yeah, but honestly,
thanks. You know what? Like I said, I think we've done a good job being diplomatic at not pointing any fingers to any one in particular about why there isn't enough Ontario, and I think we took it from a positive standpoint. So if you're a sommelier listening to this, I hope you get some emails from Ontario wineries. If you're an Ontario winery listening to this and you're looking for a starting point, feel free to DM me or DM Steven. I'm sure we would be happy to help you find the homes, or DM Michael for whatever reason.
If you're a somm in Toronto, reach out to Steven. You know what? You may not trust Andre.
Reach out to us. No, reach out to us. I would take any somm in my car down to any winery that they want.
You may not trust Andre or myself, but look, Steven's the guy who's...
I'm unbiased, and I'm like, I'll help
biased,
you guys.
But he'll help.
Yeah.
Like that. He's one of you, right? And he's the guy that maybe, he'll show you, maybe you come by rain and go, you know what? Show me some wines that are going to impress. Sounds like he's got something on the list.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm telling you, a million people come in and they try stuff, and it's like, I didn't know this was from Ontario. Why is it so good? And I'm like, enough of that. Here, just try. Blind taste, and that's what somms learn forever. And it's like, let's blind taste more, because I think you'll be impressed. Today, all these wines are insane. Beyond expectation. You probably paid nothing for them. Whatever.
He probably didn't pay for them.
No, they were all paid for.
Oh,
these ones were all paid for.
Under $30, maybe $40.
Redstone would have probably been the most expensive. Lakeview in 07. Oh, this. I would have thought the small lot would have been 24 back in. The Redstone.
maybe $40.
Maybe 40 because it's Redstone, right? But I mean, the Lakeview in 07.
You probably paid $15 for that.
No, that was a reserve.
Oh, you paid
that would have been
$21.
$19.95 maybe, So
All right, we got to get ready.
I don't think
Amazing
Lakeview
wines.
knew what they had, right? So
We got to get ready for dinner, so we got to wrap this up here. I'm Andre Prue from AndreWineReview.ca at Andre Wine Review on social media.
Stephen, you have a social media handle you want to give us?
It's my name, so good luck spelling it, but it's Stephen.Karataglidis, so Karataglidis.
And Rain, does it have a...
You make it sound
Yes.
so easy.
And then Rain is, I think it's just Rain, I think it's a Rain Instagram, and then Clockwork, Library Bar are the same. Just
I'll post them in
Google
the
it.
show notes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we'll do it.
I'm Michael Pincus of michaelpincuswinereview.com. I'm
Support
so
us
glad.
on Patreon, patreon.com/2guystalkingwine. I just had to cut you off because I thought you were about to wrap.
No, I wasn't ready yet.
Okay, we'll pick it
I was
up.
going to say I was so glad these wines actually showed because
They're
when I
amazing.
pulled them, I was
So good.
kind of
Stunned.
closed my eyes and went. I hope these do show. I'm looking forward to PL. I have to be honest, I really am after all this. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Jim Ray, Adam Duran, and Ken Little.